In agricultural news from agview.net, a report out says the BSE disease outbreak in the 90s will likely keep the European Union from easing its strict rules on food safety. That caution will likely continue, even though the U.S. President Trump is threatening to slap tariffs on car imports from the EU if the countries don't start importing more U.S. farm products. European food and farming exports to the U.S. worth $12 billion more than the imports that the bloc brings in from the U.S. Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue told EU officials last month that they should adapt food regulations that reflects sound science. But the report says there were very little optimistic ventures that the EU will agree to. European Union remembers the BSE outbreak and will not accept any lowering of its food standards. A trade specialist with the European Policy Center says no politician would support a trade deal that perceived as dropping those stringent standards. President Trump has long complained that the EU position on trade is worse than China. Well, a report issued by Broadband Now Research says the number of Americans that are without internet service is 43 million. That's double the estimate of 21.3 million from the Federal Communications Commission. The report also says the problem is worse than the FCC says in rural America. They say the discrepancy occurs because the FCC relies on semi-annual self-reporting by internet service providers using the FCC mandated form 477. So if an ISP offers service to at least one household in a census block, then the FCC counts that entire census block as covered by the provider, even if the rest of the block doesn't have service. Broadband Now Research says it's examined the magnitude of this law by manually checking internet availability using FCC data and the source of truth for randomly selected addresses. Broadband Now Research says it believes that provider reporting or address level availability is the best and most transparent way to understand and quantify the digital divide. And cattle producers who have not yet started spring calving still have time to plan ahead. And a K-State University veterinarian notes it could make a big difference in having success this year. A.J. Tarpoff, beef veterinarian with K-State Research and Extension, notes that producers need to make sure they have the necessary supplies on hand, which may require buying or repairing items and their facilities. Then, he said, things are set in motion to manage the birth of new calves. He says calving books are a phenomenal tool. Could be just the little pocketbook where you write down things like who calved and when they calved and if there was difficulty and whether or not it was a male or female coming out. And one of the newest management techniques that can lead to successful calving is feeding cows at dusk. Tarpoff says there's been several research studies that show reliable results that a higher percentage of animals are born during daylight hours when you feed the cow in the late evening hours. This will also decrease midnight or early morning births, he says, which are hard on workers and can make the birth complicated if there are difficulties. So contact your local extension agent or visit ksubeef.org for more information. More on these stories and others, go to agview.net. Stay with us. More coming up.